and a half all day. Linux is asking to install an update, but I don't know if it's sure on my validator install it or any tip. Yeah, good question. A lot of people ask this, installing updates on validators. I don't want to. I have a very, very particular way of doing things. I mean, maybe it's not that uncommon either, but I want to reduce any of the risk in things going down or not working. So updates, what I do is, unless it is a critical update that literally affects my computer, I guess server at this point, the computer I would treat a little bit differently because it's a browser, you're browsing the internet, a lot more attacks and malware and stuff that you're putting yourself at risk at when you're doing that, versus a server, which it's very little attack surface. I did a whole clips and streams and stuff on the attack surface validators. I've did diagrams. I've talked about this before. There's not a lot going on unless that doesn't have to be. By default, it's pretty secure by default. Use good password. Don't use password. Use private key if you want better security. Turn on 2FA if you want. Don't open up any services other than your remote management, SSH, for example. Only open port should be your remote management, which again is locked down with either 2FA or private key and password and all that stuff. Run it on a different port if you want. Other than that, a server attack surface is completely different than a client, your desktop computer or your laptop computer or your tablet or your phone. Very, very different than a server, because when you're on the internet, again, using Windows, I've talked about this a million times, you're driving on the wrong street. All kinds of malware is made specifically to infect your computer. So on your validator, you should never, quote, never, right? Like, you should never be browsing the internet and doing stuff. You should only go to if you're going to go to, you need to download a script or whatever off GitHub, and you got to go get the URL. Preferably do all that in command line. But hey, if you want to use the browser, open up for a minute to only specifically go to a trusted URL. I don't see a problem with that. But if you're using it to browse the internet, it's way different. So there's not a lot of stuff to do for security. So for updates, what are you? So the way I think about it is, if I'm updating the validator, what am I getting out of it? If it is, the first thought, and if you don't know security, you don't know Linux or all these things, that your first thought is, okay, I want to make sure my validator doesn't go down, because if it doesn't have updates, maybe something can go wrong. Okay, reasonable approach. But the way I think about it is, what am I getting by installing updates? Is it a new feature, or is it a security fix? Does it actually affect my validator security or performance, or this and that? They can actually do something, or do I not do that? There's servers that can be online for years without updates. Linux is famous for being very stable in a lot of different configurations, especially, as long as you're not running all kinds of crazy stuff on it. It could stay up for months, years, without updates. And, unless there's like some crazy remote TCP/IP type exploit, you're not, chances are you're not going to be vulnerable to a lot of the security stuff. So I'm not saying don't install updates. The way I look at it is, I don't worry about updates as much, because I know that unless it affects my remote management server, which is very rare, SSH bugs are very rare. And if they are, they're not code execution. They're not like the type that does stuff like that. Usually, go look up the track record. You can see that. Or it affects the client. So updating the clients, that's a whole other thing. Like, okay, when should you update the clients? Well, last time I just wanted to test my update script because I had some issues with it before. Now it's working great. So I kind of want to get that out of the way. Otherwise, the last time I updated clients when the new versions came out for Geth and Lighthouse, is that what I run? Yeah. I didn't think it was really necessary. There wasn't anything, maybe they were bigger updates for Prism and Aragon and stuff, but for the clients that my script uses, they weren't that big updates. I could have easily not taken them. So just trying to give you some different situations and ways I look at things. So Validator's been asking for updates. I personally don't plan on installing updates unless they are critical updates. Those are ones that actually affect my validator or otherwise. Otherwise, if there's no bugs that affect the software you're running, what's the point in going out of your way to update, reboot, have the downtime? Chances are the updates can break stuff too. So it's not like zero risk when you're doing updates. There's low risk, but it can still, break stuff too, depending on if you have special hardware and all that stuff. A lot that goes into it, but generally, long way of saying, I don't just do updates every time it pops up. I'll say it like that. But if there's something critical, security, that actually affects my validator, of course, yeah, ASAP for that. But most of the time, that's not the case.